Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Addictively Speaking. I'm your host, James, and today I'd like to talk about alcohol versus other drugs. Simply because why not? I don't think the conversation has had enough. I don't think people talk about it the way they should. I don't think we discuss it. I mean, if we do it, I haven't heard it. I haven't heard anybody talking about, you know, how we don't put alcohol up there with these other drugs. We don't classify it, with these other drugs. We we, we just we're so blasé about it. It's very because it is so normalized and readily available. And does it make it any less dangerous if it's that easy to get a hold of? I don't think so. I mean, maybe that's just my opinion or whatever. Maybe that's just you know me because I suffered from you know, alcohol addiction and alcohol abuse. Um, I don't do well with alcohol, but I just can't understand why we don't look at it the same way. Um, I don't know if that's a problem society wide or what. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why we don't. We would sooner look down on people who smoke weed than people who drink alcohol. But I just I haven't seen that many negative things about weed. I haven't, people don't go out and, get physically violent with other people when they're high on weed. But they do when they drink. They do get a little rowdy when they drink. They get a little obnoxious. They get loud. That happens, right? That's part of it. That happens to people. And I just don't think, you know, it 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 it's just as addictive as these other drugs. It's probably, you know, I imagine the addiction rate for alcohol is probably astronomical. It's probably second to, you know, heroin or something like that. I'm sure it's quite up there. I mean, if you look at the statistics, like statistically speaking, I mean, alcohol is, you know, it's up there with all the other drugs, you know. It's right next to them, right next to cocaine and heroin, all that shit. It's right there. But we don't have that conversation. We just, because it is so commonplace and, you know, but tons of people suffer from it. Tons of people around the world, you know? And it's widely available, it's readily available to all kind of people. I mean, I get it. I know they tried prohibition and the shit failed and, people bootlegged, they made money off of it and et cetera, et cetera. But I just don't think that we think about it enough to look at it like this is damaging. It damages people. It damages their lives, you know. It damages your liver, causes kidney problems, like all that type of shit. Long-term alcohol use. People that have addiction issues suffer tremendously. Um, you know, from kidney failure and liver failure. Their liver shuts down and shit. I mean, it's long term. I mean, it's long term. That's a long game they play. It takes many many years before you get that far gone, or unless you do it hard and heavy for a shorter window, and it can still really mess you up. Um, but we don't look at it the same. I don't think it's put up there like the level of severity isn't placed on alcohol that it is placed on like, heroin and things like that. Heroin, you say heroin and people are like, oh shit, heroin. That ruins lives. So does alcohol. It ruins lives. It ruins people. It makes them horrible people. It makes them do shitty things. Um, so I don't think you can say that it's not as dangerous as some of those other drugs. And I think that's we kind of, you know, we don't it's not looked at as severely, which to me is crazy because it is a dangerous drug. Like, it does dangerous. It lowers your inhibitions. It lowers your ability, um, to react to things. It lowers your inhibitions, right? So it stops you. It lowers your ability to say, "Hey, that's a bad idea," because your inhibitions are lowered. You say, "Fuck it, I'm gonna get in that car. I'm gonna operate a 2-ton motor vehicle. I'm heavily intoxicated, but that's all right, because fuck it. Alcohol told me it's okay." I can't tell you how many times I've been in that situation where there's no reason I should have gotten a car, put the keys in the ignition, and drove it. But alcohol made me not give a shit. It made me not care. It made me not care about my life, anybody else's life that was in the vicinity of me driving said motor vehicle. Um, yeah, that's dangerous, man. That's scary. That's scary. People get drunk all the time at that level. And now I obviously I went to the extreme cases in a lot of these scenarios. Obviously, I'm at the more extreme end, but still, if you're drunk and you get in a car, it's very easy to wreck that car. It's very easy to have an accident, right? I think we can all agree on that. Is that it's easy to have an accident if you've been drinking. It's very easy, but we don't. Because it doesn't. People don't like to admit those type of things in themselves. Like, that stuff happens. Like, it's very easy to look at all the other drugs and put them. They're so dangerous. They're so dangerous. Just cocaine's dangerous. You'll sell everything. You'll be a shitty person. These are the things. Like, there's all this like stereotypes that go around about all these other drugs. But then alcohol is looked at the fun-loving friend that, you take to the barbecue and you have a good time with. But it also causes damage to people's lives. It causes damage to, you know, your body as well. Um, when you drink for a long period of time, it changes the chemicals in your brain. Um, it just changes who you are as a person. I can attest to that because it changed who I was as a person. Um, it made me a different person. It made me an angry and violent person, a person who didn't have any regard for people's feelings or that their well-being. I didn't care because there was nothing stopping me from caring. There was nothing in my mind that said, "Hey, that's a bad idea." But being sober, you can stop yourself. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's really weird to me that I try to talk to people, and people don't see it that way. Like, alcohol is not as dangerous, but if you look at statistics and you look at DUIs, uh, drunk driving accidents per year, yeah, the rates are quite high. If you look at statistics, statistically speaking, drunk driving accidents are high. How many times do people go out and get disorderly conducts? But probably a lot, and probably most of them are alcohol related. You know, domestics, domestics, alcohol. Alcohol is involved in tons of domestic abuse related like stuff. It's because it stops you from making the decision to be like, nah, I'm not gonna do that because your ambitions have been lowered. You're taking this depressant. It's messing with you in a way that you know it makes you a different person. It makes you that person who doesn't care, that doesn't give a shit. It makes you angry or violent or, whatever. Sometimes it makes you the happy, sappy, crying guy, but sometimes it just brings out the worst in people. I'm just gonna look up just some statistics. That's what I'm gonna do. So this is alcohol related mortality in 2023 or 2021, sorry. There were more than 20,970 alcohol related deaths in England, equating to a rate of 38.5 per 100,000 of the population. The mortality rate was the highest in the Northeast region, 50.4 per 100,000. That's crazy. That's nuts, isn't it? That's a high death rate there. Let me see. Let's do the US. Drinking related. All right. Let me see. What does this say here? Let's see. Here we go. It is estimated that more than 140,000 people, approximately 97,000 men and 43,000 women, die from alcohol-related causes annually, making alcohol the fourth leading preventable cause of death in the United States, behind tobacco, poor diet, and physical inactivity and illegal drugs. So it's up there. It's killing people. It's the fourth leading preventable cause. Preventable. You see that? That's the key word right there. Preventable. So these deaths are preventable by not drinking or, by being sober. Here we go. About 31% of all traffic crashes, fatalities in the United States involve drunk drivers. There were 13,384 people killed in preventable crashes. So, and that's the US. That's 31%. I mean, that's quite significant, I'd say. 31%. And for the UK, it's less. It's less in the UK. 240 to 280 people were killed in collisions in Great Britain, where at least one driver was over the drink drive limit. So it's way higher than the United States as far as people killed. I mean, that's a pretty big gap. It was 240 to 280, and that's 13,000. So that's pretty bad. So this is statistics. It's up there. It's up there with all the bad drugs. I just don't think we view it the same way. We don't look at it in the same light. But in reality, it's just as dangerous. I'm gonna look again. I'm gonna look up something else. I think it's so. It looks like some of the worst addictions. alcohol, caffeine, cannabis, hallucinogens. So it's on the list of things that are highly addictive. There. So, so yeah, I've just been thinking about this for a while, and like, why do we not view it the same? What makes it different? And I just imagine that it is because it's so socially acceptable, and we've been, drinking alcohol for what, thousands of years now, haven't we? I mean, they drink it in the Egyptian times. I mean, we've been drinking since Jesus turned water to wine. I mean, it's just part of the world. But I do think that we need to take alcohol a bit more serious and look at it a bit more, closely and say, because it's easy, and it's also is that people don't come forward when they're struggling with alcohol addiction. It's harder to admit. I feel like it's hard for people to admit that that's a problem because it's kind of like, everybody does it. Everybody drinks. Everybody uses it. Why can't you just use it like a normal person or whatever? I don't know. I just feel like people have a hard time saying, "Oh shit, maybe my drinking's a bit out of hand. Maybe I do it to a different level than other people." I know when I was drinking, I would look to other people for validation. I would look to other people. If I ever thought that I had a problem and I said that I did, I'd wait to see what other people would say to me. And most of the time, they'd be like, "Ah, nah, man, you just like to have a little fun. Maybe sometimes you take it too far. Like, I don't think you have a problem." And I'd be like, "Yeah, you know what? You're right. I don't have a problem." Right? I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just like to go a little, I just went a little too far that night." But that night was like every fucking night. That night was like, you know, 3 times a week. That night was, you know. But it was funny because I thought like if I just said it, like maybe somebody'd be like, "Yeah, man, that's maybe you're onto something there. Maybe you do have an issue." But I think in hindsight now, when I look at the whole situation, I think people that are doing the same things that you're doing, if you say, "I think I have a drinking problem," then a lot of the people that are around you probably have that same drinking problem, and they don't want to say that they have a drinking problem. I don't know why it's such a big, like, it's like, it feels like it's a big taboo thing. Like, because every time I said it, people would always be like, "Nah, man, no, you just like to get drunk, man. You just like to have a good time." But like, they weren't ending up in jail or getting DUIs. Like, they weren't doing that shit. They weren't getting their nose broke. They weren't getting into fights. Like, they weren't doing that shit. That was me. I was doing that shit. So I just kind of find it funny that, you know, every time I did say I could possibly have an issue, I was always met with, "Nah, you're good. Don't worry about it." And I think a lot of people that kind of say, "Hey, maybe I do have a problem with this," they probably get told the same thing. "No, you just like to have a little fun. Ah, you just kind of, sometimes you get a little too far, man. You know, you don't have a problem, you know?" And that's what keeps you stuck. That's what keeps you stuck in that place because it's hard to it's hard to get out of it if you don't, you have everybody else is telling you you're good, you know? So I just wish that people would look at alcohol the same way they looked at, you know, other drugs. It's as addictive, it's as damaging. Many more people suffer from alcohol problems um, because it is easily accessible. It's readily available, um, and people that do have alcohol addiction problems, it's hard for, it's hard to stay sober in a world that revolves around drinking and things that revolve around drinking because it's always there. It's always around. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, I imagine there's alcohol in this house right now. I'm sober, but my wife drinks occasionally. It's everywhere, you know? It's inescapable for people with alcohol problems. So, you know, like things like cocaine and heroin, you have to source, you have to find it, you have to go get a dealer, you have to find a dealer, you have to find somebody willing to give it to you. It is not at your doorstep. It's not. It's not right down the road. Well, I mean, it could be right down the road, whether it's drug like heroin or whatever. But still, alcohol's cheaper. It's easier to buy. But I think we should definitely have the conversation of alcohol and other drugs. What's the disparity? Where's the difference? Why is one looked down upon more than the other? A heroin addict is not viewed the same way as an alcoholic. They're both viewed differently. They're looked at differently. Like, I just think that alcohol is just as detrimental to people all across the world. And I think we should treat it as such. It should be treated the same way. We should look at it the same way. It's just as horrible as all these other drugs. It causes a lot more damage to people's lives and livelihoods and their friends and their families and their loved ones. It's the same. It's just the same as all the other drugs. And we need to start looking at it like that. And we need to recognize that it's just as dangerous because it's easy to get a hold of and it's easy to abuse. If it's easy to get, it's easy to get abused because you can get it all the time, anywhere. So I think the conversation should be alcohol is just as bad as any of those other drugs that are illegal. It causes just as much damage. It wreaks just as much havoc on people's lives as heroin, as cocaine, as all that shit. I mean, that's just my personal thoughts, but I think that's where I'm at with it. That's where I'm at with alcohol. You're just as shitty a drug as any of the other ones. You're just as bad, but you're available everywhere. And that's the shitty part, is that people that do end up struggling with alcohol, yeah, it's tough for us because it's everywhere. The shit's everywhere. So if you are suffering with alcohol and you think you have a problem or you think you might have a problem, if you're thinking that, if you're thinking you're saying it to yourself, then yeah, you probably do. You should find help. You should go to a 12-step program. You should go to a detox. Go somewhere and get some help. Because it's hard to do it on your own. It's difficult to come out of this by yourself. So find somebody, find some help, talk to people, and don't ask your friends for validation to say that you have a problem because they're going to tell you fucking don't. So just if you're saying it to yourself, then you need to go get help. And I think that's it. I think that's where I'm going to end it. So head over to the YouTube at Addictively Speaking Podcast. Watch the videos, like, share, subscribe. I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcast. And I'm just out here trying to provide some hope to people. And listen, you can get through it. You can recover. You can grow, and you can build a life for yourself. Even though alcohol is dangerous as all these other drugs, you can recover from it and you can build a life, a beautiful life, the one that you can enjoy and be proud of. So if you are struggling, there is hope. There are people out here to help you. You just got to find them and you just got to reach out. That's it. That's it for me. I'll see you guys next time.